The international airport buzzed with the energy of travelers rushing to catch flights, dragging suitcases, checking phones, and weaving through security. It was an ordinary day, or so it seemed. Officer Jake Thompson stood near the customs checkpoint, scanning the crowd with trained precision. His K-9 partner, Max, a Belgian Malinois with a flawless track record, sat alert beside him. Over the years, Max had sniffed out everything from narcotics to illegal firearms. But today, his instincts were about to uncover something far more sinister. As waves of passengers passed, Max suddenly stiffened. His ears shot up, nostrils flaring, body coiled with tension. Then came the bark, sharp, urgent, insistent. Jake's gaze snapped in the direction of Max's focus, a middle-aged man in a gray hoodie, gripping a black duffel bag. He looked ordinary, too ordinary. "Excuse me, sir." Jake stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. The man hesitated for the briefest second before forcing a nervous smile. "Is there a problem, officer?" Max barked again, louder this time, his tail stiff as a rod. "Place your bag on the table," Jake instructed, watching the man's every movement. A bead of sweat rolled down the man's temple. His grip on the duffel bag tightened. "Sir," Jake's voice hardened. With visible reluctance, the man unzipped the bag. The moment the zipper slid open, Max lunged, barking wildly. Jake's pulse spiked as he peered inside. And then, his breath caught. Wrapped in a thin, tattered blanket was a tiny infant, barely a few weeks old. Pale, fragile, and dangerously weak, the baby let out the faintest whimper. Gasps rippled through the security checkpoint. The room, once alive with movement, fell deathly silent. Jake didn't hesitate. He carefully lifted the baby from the bag, his hands steady despite the surge of emotions crashing over him. The child's chest rose and fell in shallow, fragile breaths. "What the hell is this?" an officer muttered. The man raised trembling hands. I wasn't trying to hurt him," he stammered. "I was trying to save him." Jake turned, eyes sharp as steel. "Save him from what?" Tears welled in the man's eyes. "From being sold." A chill ran through the room. The weight of his words settled over them like a suffocating fog. The man, Daniel Carter, was no ordinary traveler. He was a journalist. For months, he had been investigating a human trafficking ring specializing in newborns. The child, whom he had named Noah in his mind, was one of many meant to be smuggled out of the country that very night. "I found him in a back room of a clinic," Daniel explained, his voice shaking. "Wrapped in rags. He was going to disappear into the black market. I had to do something." Jake clenched his jaw. If this was true, it wasn't just one abandoned baby, it was an entire operation. Max barked again, pawing at the duffel bag. Jake reached inside and pulled out a small USB drive. "What's this?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Everything. Names, locations, transactions. I was trying to get it to the authorities before they caught me." Jake exhaled sharply. This wasn't just an arrest, this was a breakthrough. Within hours, the information on the USB led law enforcement to a hidden facility on the outskirts of the city. What they found turned their stomachs. Rows of cribs, damp with neglect. Babies, some only days old, swaddled in thin, dirty blankets. Fake documents stacked neatly on desks. It was a well-oiled machine, designed to make newborns vanish without a trace. The raid was swift. The criminals were taken down, and the infants were rescued, each one given a second chance at life. As officers carried the babies to safety, Jake stood in the chaos, watching. His heart pounded. If Max hadn't barked, if Daniel hadn't taken the risk, he didn't even want to imagine the alternative. Days later, Jake visited the hospital where Noah was recovering. The baby, now in the care of social services, looked stronger. His tiny fingers curled around Jake's, a whisper of trust. Max, sitting beside him, let out a soft whimper before licking the baby's fingers. A nurse nearby smiled. "He's already loved. There's a waiting list of families wanting to adopt him." Jake smiled. "But he deserves a real home." As he walked out of the hospital, Max trotting beside him, he looked up at the sky. The world was dark, but today, they had brought a little more light into it. And it had all started with a dog who refused to stop barking. Moral of the story: courage takes many forms. Sometimes, it's a man willing to risk everything for the truth. Sometimes, it's a dog trusting his instincts. And sometimes, it's the refusal to turn a blind eye to evil. One moment of bravery can change lives forever.